of user-defined Excels. And if this is a trusted workbook like it is, you can write a new formula like day name, for example, and you can get that to execute and run, as we can see here. So that is the difference between kind of a enabled workbook and a non-enabled workbook. That will be a big determination whether or not your functions will execute. Okay, so what I want to show you first and foremost is the developer toolbar, which you'll notice is missing up here. And then I also want to show you the trust center, because both of those have a big impact on where and how macros are enabled, how you get to them, and then also some of the advanced functionality that comes with it. So to get to this, what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the File menu on the upper left-hand corner. Okay, from the File menu, we're going to go ahead and click down here to Options. Okay, this is going to bring us into our options for Excel, and all the main stuff inside of Excel is going to be listed in here. So for example, if you choose to want to change your default font, or let's say you want to change your background template or theme or your name or anything of that nature, this is going to be where you're going to choose to change those settings. Now, there's also two other components on the left-hand side of this. There is the Addins and the Trust Center. Okay, remember those two menu options and where they are. They're very, very useful. Additionally, you'll also see there is an option that says Customize Ribbon. Okay, so let's go take a look at the Trust Center first. Then we're going to come back to look at the Addins, and then we're going to come back to look at Customize Ribbon. Okay, we'll click the Trust Center here, and then we'll click the Trust Center button that's going to be on the right side of this, because Trust Center actually opens up in another screen. Okay. Now, the Trust Center is how and where your Excel workbook is going to trust particular documents. And there's lots of different trusts that you can have. You can have trust from a particular publisher. You can have trust in a particular location. That would be, for example, like, hey, always trust this stuff in my C menu, in my C drive or my D drive or on SharePoint or something like that, or specific documents. Now, the reason we have trust and the reason these things exist in the way that they do is because macros by their design can be quite dangerous to the user's computer. Now, what do I mean by that? Macros run with the same permissions of the user. So the computer can't tell the difference between Steve running a macro and a macro that just happened to be inside of the computer. It just sees that the user is doing something. Macros run with that same level of permission. Now, the other thing about macros that you should know is that macros inside of Excel can affect the computer in general. It's not limited, it's not sandboxed only to the Excel application. And that's what makes it dangerous. So we have our macro settings on the left-hand side here. And from these macro settings, we get a couple of different options for this. And the reason we can disable macros or only enable them from certain places or otherwise be careful with them, or at least know that they exist, is because they can run like they are us. The computer sees that the macro is doing something, but it can't tell the difference between the macro and the user, and the fact that it can go external to the application. So when you hear people, for example, tell you don't enable macros or don't open macros from people you don't know or something that's sent to you by email, they're absolutely valid, because you could download an Excel workbook with malicious code inside of it, and that malicious code could do things like a data breach or otherwise negatively affect your computer. Now, inside of this macro settings, what my personal recommendation is disable all macros with notifications. What that gives you the ability to do is that by default, when the Excel workbook opens up, it will tell you, hey, there's a macro inside of this workbook. What do you want me to do with it? And if that macro opens, so let's go ahead and open this again. Okay. The hows and whys of user-defined functions here. It's going to give us a little thing, or at least should give us a little bit of thing up here that will tell us that, hey, there is a macro enabled. I think I've already trusted this one, so that's probably why it's not popping up here. But generally, that's where you would see that warning. It would pop up as a ribbon layout here, and it would require you to click yes, enable macros in order for this to run. Okay, so if you can't ever get your macros to run, more often than not, it's going to be over here in that Trust Center, and it will be because you have disabled certain documents, or you will have changed your macro settings to disable macros from even running. Okay, so that's that right there. And generally, if you just do this once, like I did with this Excel workbook, it should just run for you and it should continue to trust. Okay, that's the first thing. Okay, second thing I want to show you is the add-ins. Now, the add-ins is going to be where all the other Excel functionality lives. And there's a couple of different types of add-ons here. There are Excel add-ons, which is what we're going to be working with today. There are COM add-ins, actions, XML expansion packs, and then your disabled items, which is just stuff that's been disabled. Now, the Excel add-ins, if we go over here and we can click go, this is going to be where it's going to show us other functionality that is available inside of Excel, but not currently on. Okay. The analysis tool pack and the analysis tool pack VBA, for example, here, these are kind of like macros. These are enhanced Excel statistical analysis. And so if we wanted to, for example, enable this one, or let's say the solver add-in, and click OK here, those will turn on additional functionalities inside of Excel. Now, when we create user-defined functions and we save it as an add-in, that's where we're going to go to turn that on. Okay. Now, for the solver and the analysis tool pack, when we turn those on, if we come over here to the data tab, you'll see here on the far right side, data analysis and solver as being those two options that have been added here. And these are fantastic if you're looking to do statistical analysis. For example, you could do things like regression testing, rank and percentile, random number generation, F testing, covariance, correlation, ANOVA, all different types of advanced statistics can be done right inside of Excel. Okay, the third thing I wanted to show you in the options menu, let's come back over here to File, drop down here to Options, and go ahead and select Customize Ribbon, is the ability to be able to turn off different menu items inside of Excel. And you'll notice by default, the developer toolbar is disabled. Now, I wish Microsoft didn't do this because there's so much great functionality and shortcuts built right into this menu. Now, if we turn on this ribbon menu, and we click Save or OK, you're going to notice we get a new menu item pops up. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now we have the developer toolbar. In this, you'll see we've got a couple of new work groups: code, add-ins, controls, and XML. And so this is where we can add a lot of advanced capabilities to our workbook right in here. You know, for example, if you've ever opened up an Excel workbook and it's had, you know, like a button, for example, you know, this has been how they've added that button, you know, to do something. It's been through this developer toolbar. Or if you've ever been inside of an Excel workbook and you've seen, for example, they've got drop-down menus that are not data validation. Well, guess what? That is through the developer toolbar. Now, from the developer toolbar, we also get the ability to open the Visual Basic for Applications editor here. We can also record macros if we choose to do this. This functionality is also the same on the View menu on the far right over here. So it's the same thing. And we can also access all of our different add-ins, including our Excel add-ins, as I mentioned ago. Okay, this is, for example, from the Microsoft Store, but we can add in our Excel add-ins if we'd like, and we can also access our COM add-ins right from here too. So very powerful to know where it is.